sometimes you get to a place where you just have to analyze who you are and where you've come from. And that started happening to me again this week. I read an article in the paper that a woman had posted on Facebook a copy of a receipt that she received, or a bill I should say, from an electrician or heating guy. I'm not sure if she had gas or electric heat, but she came home at night with her 2 kids and she had no heat and it was very cold. She called somebody. It was apparently late in the evening, and the owner of the company came out to help her, got her heat going, and charged her $1. Called it the deployment discount, I believe. She, of course, was really amazed by the kindness. Her husband apparently is overseas somewhere right now fighting for our country. Because she posted on Facebook and people caught wind of it, the gentleman who did the good deed ended up interviewed. And through that process, he told the story of his grandfather, who was a milkman back in the Depression era. And there were times when Grandpa would show up to a house and the woman didn't have any money, but she had a baby or something that touched his heart, and so he would just leave the milk on the table. This kind gentleman who helped this woman recently, he said, all I was doing was leaving the milk on the table. And he said, I'm not a hero. The real heroes are the ones fighting for us overseas or wherever they're fighting for us. You know, I mean, you hear that story and it hopefully touches your heart as it did mine, because that is what, you know, what we should be as people. You know, we try and love our neighbors. And, you know, I started thinking about, you know, how proud his grandpa would have been of him. And then I started thinking about my grandpa. And, you know, I wasn't there through the 30s and 40s and 50s, but I did show up in the 60s. And what I remember about my grandpa was, you know, on summer vacations, I would spend the week with him and my grandma, and I would go on his business calls. And his business calls were done in a big blue station wagon that he hauled medical equipment around in. See, my grandpa started a business of repairing and selling medical equipment. And so as a young boy, I was sitting in houses watching my grandpa take care of these medical equipment needs for some very sick people, young and old. And I suppose without even knowing it, that helped shape who I became, because my grandpa was a very caring man. And then my dad ended up being a police officer just outside of Detroit for 30 years. My dad's brother died in Vietnam. I enlisted in the Army when I was 19, but the rest of my life after that, I ended up involved in youth ministry. And so I spent 25 years doing that kind of thing, helping teenagers, helping families with troubled teens and whatnot, working in youth facilities, and, you know, youth homes, stuff like that. And I guess it just kind of runs in the family. Even my son, he's in the Navy, you know, so you just got to take stock with who you are and realize you may never get rich doing it, but it's a good life. You know, people think that our real estate agents are loaded. No, that's not true. There's some that are, but the majority are just pretty much right where everybody else is. Being a part of society and helping your neighbor achieve their dreams and their goals, and at the same time, you know, it helps you. You know, when I went through real estate school, one of the things that really stuck out to me was that the primary role of a realtor is to protect the public. I thought it was to buy and sell houses when I got into it, but no, it was to protect the public. The way that it protects the public is apparently not all that long ago in history, there were a lot of shysters out there selling swampland in Florida. You remember that old thing? We are called to protect the public from having their lives destroyed by bad real estate deals. You know, kind of reminds me of Potter's Field and Bailey's Savings and Loan, and It's a Wonderful Life. You know, George Bailey, he was making sure that people had a decent home that they didn't have to worry about losing if things got a little tough. And then you had Mr. Potter, who could care less about people, what they lived in, or whether or not they could pay their bills, or whether or not they had a home. I don't know, that's just what I've been thinking about this week. I hope that inspires you to care about your neighbors, to do what you can for people, and have a blessed 2016.